As a proud Kelly alum, I am so excited to share that along with Indie Maven, we partnered with Indiana University Kelly School of Business to continue interviewing female founders in our Indianapolis community. Whether you're ready to deepen your knowledge after a few years in the field or you're looking to expand on your experience-filled resume, you can be ready for whatever life brings your way with the top-ranked Kelly School of Business Evening MBA program in downtown Indianapolis. You'll learn how to make better business decisions, chart success for organizations, and unlock the talent of people. You'll find your passion and you'll be prepared as new doors of opportunity open. You can learn more by clicking the link in the description below. Hi and hello, welcome back to Founder to Founder. My name is Arianna Cruz and I'm the founder of More Magazine. Today I get to sit with Leslie Bailey again. This time we're talking about the Maven Space and the journey that the Maven Space has been, the beauty of it, and the community that's been found here, which has been so cool. If you remember, I got to sit with Leslie and Amanda last summer where we learned about Indie Maven and everything that goes into it, how women are depicted in the media. So I'm so jazzed. I'm so jazzed. This has become one of my favorite places to be, and we're sitting in the creator studio now. But I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of start teasing what we're going to chat about today.
Okay, well, I'm Leslie Bailey, the co-founder and CEO of Indie Maven and now Maven Space. So Indie Maven launched in October 2019, which now in hindsight, not hindsight, what could we have done, but interesting time to start a business. And then still through all of that, decided that we needed to launch another business, which was Maven Space, in May of this year. So Maven Space is a second separate business, but it came out of the community that was built around Indie Maven and saying how the important, well, we knew, the importance of having a place for, especially those who identify as female, to connect with each other, and just women in the workplace. We look at stats, we look at all of the things, the mental load, the role of caregiver, the role of mother, the role of all of these things, and just saying, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a nice, I think, physical, soft space to land. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is.
Well, so what all can we find in the Maven Space? Like I said, we're sitting in the content creator studio right now. Yeah. What else is around here?
So in this room, we can use this as a private meeting room, but we also are fully equipped from Share Your Genius to record podcasts. We've got 4 mics in the whole system. We have a lending library from Wild Geese Bookshop in Franklin. Members come in, you can borrow a book. It's a great selection. I mean, it's like a fabulous selection of books. We've got a mother's room that was sponsored by the Milk Bank, and we love what they do. So you can also use that room to take private calls. We've got phone booths. We've got semi-private meeting spaces, boardroom meeting spaces. We've got a very large event space that has 3 drop-down projectors and all the AV. We have a cafe on site that can function, just opened their second location in our space. So we have that, and then we have a full fitness studio. So we're pretty well equipped. It's 15,000 square feet, so there's a lot here.
No, it's awesome. And there's space to work out on your own. There's space for the group classes, which is so cool. I was checking out the programming on my way in this morning, and I am beyond baffled by the phone booths, because I went in it for the first time, and when I shut it, it just truly, the world is blocked the heck out. Yeah. It is.
I mean, if you scream at the top of your lungs, you can hear it. But other than that, you can have a conversation. It's just, I find that to be very soothing. I feel like it's a little cocoon. So yeah, I like that space a lot.
It's really cool.
We're getting more because it's a popular spot.
That's awesome. I had the interns in here a few weeks ago, and for the ribbon cutting, which was also just so cool and exciting to see. But it was almost like a hazing. I was like, go in the phone booth. Yeah. It's so cool. Tell me what you think.
Everybody's favorite thing to show off to people when they do tours and stuff. And everyone wants to go in and scream. So we now say, just scream.
That is so funny. It's like, have you ever watched New Girl?
Yes.
Okay, Nick references the toilet that flushes upward.
Yes.
And
everybody has to go and do that.
Yes.
It's the toilet.
Congratulations.
I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that Maven Space came from the community wanting a space to be together, but you'd also kind of already been talking about this in our last interview, and I just feel like I got to just watch the evolution of it come to life and how quick it happened. Like, I, as a young entrepreneur and having all these dreams and hopes of what I want more to be, and seeing you say it and then a few months later be like, I think I might have found space.
Yeah.
I think this is when we're all, like, I am, chills. I am like beside
Me too.
myself.
Well, yeah, I think it's like the power of putting, I kind of believed this before, but the way that this unravels, like, solidified it for me. Like, the power of putting things out into the world, this space with everything. I made up a crazy, I'm like, I'm gonna, and I did this with our, like, the house we live in too. Like, I'm gonna make this crazy wish list and then hope I get half of it. And I made this crazy wish list for this space and I got all of it. I was like, I want a building that's old but doesn't feel too old. And I would love to have a gym. I'd love to have a cafe. And like, I'd love to have tons of natural light and plants everywhere. And like, right, this unicorn of a space. And my realtor, Jenna Barnett at Newmark was like, I have 9 spaces I can show you, but I think you really want to see this one. And they can only do it this day. So we came and it was the first space we saw. And I was like, why would we look at anything else? But we did, you know, wanted to do our due diligence, but it was like, every other space was like, oh, it's close, but we'd have to do it or we'd have to build out. Like this came with the furniture, it came with the gym equipment. We, you know, I don't want to say I joked like, oh, we just had to put some throw pillows out. It's been a lot more than that, and we still had such a work in progress, but it, like, to put that out into the world, and then I think there's the power of, like, there's a word for that. You put things out into the world. Manifesting, thank you.
Yes.
And then also for, like, intuition, because I also, if I would have only used logic, this would have been a terrible idea. Like, I didn't pursue funding. Like, I didn't do it in the typically, like, right way or the way that it's historically done, but also that has its own challenges, like fruition and funding and all these things. But realistically, I was also just like, I don't want to miss this opportunity, and it feels like I couldn't not do it. So even though it was a very big, scary thing, I couldn't imagine like turning down that, what I saw as an opportunity. Even though it was a huge challenge, it was still a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's worked out beautifully. It's been received so well. I feel like everybody in the Indianapolis community has openly embraced it and wanted to be here and wanted to spread the word about it, which I feel like sometimes that is hard in itself, just getting people to have that buy-in. But I know that you talked about, and as an Indie Maven member and board member, I also get like those regular surveys to do a pulse check. And how, in the big scheme of prioritizing all the things, how high of a priority has that remained for you and your team?
For Indie Maven? Or
just the pulse checking with your community?
Oh, yeah, well, there's so much, as you know, that goes into running a business, and I, in sort of like March, was like, don't forget to do a member survey, and then, you know, things get busy, and you try and do these annually, and I'm every year like, I'm gonna get ahead of it, but I felt like it was time. I wanted to get some updated numbers. We've grown a lot this year, so I wanted to see, like, is what we were hearing from our audience a year ago, 2 years ago, the same, and essentially it was, but also really like more heavily recognizing like our audience wanted more in-person events, smaller ones, so maybe it was a little less intimidating. Our meetups are around like, can be up to 50 people or more sometimes, and so if you don't know anyone, then that can be intimidating. So for example, we're going to start doing more events but smaller, sort of opportunities to build connections, and that was why we wanted to have a space to do these things. So that is super important on our end, to be constantly asking for feedback. But I think the challenge sometimes is actually getting people. It's hard because maybe you're a member of like 3 different organizations and they all have surveys and they all want your feedback, and it's so valuable. So just recognizing that as a person in the community, you sharing your thoughts, and not that you can please everyone, but for example, in this space, no one's heard this yet because we haven't announced it. We're going to announce it next week, so I'll just tell you that we're updating our Maven Space memberships. So every single level is going to include access to the gym now, because after thinking more about it, and we were able to tweak our model, like we only have so much to work with, but we've added that, so now there's not going to be as much of a barrier, right? Like anybody who has a membership can access that, whereas before it was just a top level. And then we're actually switching the top level membership. We're originally the value with having the gym access. We're actually switching it to like a Teams membership. And so you actually get 2 people for that price, because we also recognized so many people are going off and doing ventures with one other person, and they don't need the full teams of like 3 or 4 people
Right.
at the corporate kind of level.
Mm-hmm.
But to sort of say too, like, it makes it more cost effective, right, to go in with somebody too, but recognizing like we want to work together and we're building things together, and so we're gonna announce that next week.
That is awesome. That is so cool, and that's so intuitive to like pick up on how teams are built and like adjusting your structure in that way.
Well, and I think what was I think we saw this very early on. Like we got the feedback very early on, and I was, or not even feedback, but just observing. Like, and I was able to see, oh, this is something that's happening. And I think what kept me from doing it was that I thought that I had to be like every other co-working space, but the whole point was that we're not every other co-working space. And I think I almost forgot the control that we have, and we're so lucky to be able to do that. Like, I don't have to go ask anyone for approval. we just kind of can do that. And so I think sometimes you almost, especially I think when you walk into a space that's this beautiful, and you feel like, oh, I have to like do the way that Salesforce, because we said least from Salesforce, like the way that Salesforce had it done. And it's like, no, this is our space now. We can do what we want with it, which means we can also do what we want with the memberships. We don't have like a corporate person to answer to. So if this is what our audience wants, we can very quickly respond to that. And again, you can't do it for everybody, but like if there's a very strong, like for example, the meetups, that was the strongest, like this is the thing I value the most out of my membership. These are the things I want more of. Now if 2 people said something, okay, we'll still read it and consider it.
Right.
That's not the majority. And so that's really important. It's just like politics. Like if you want to have a say, you have to vote. Otherwise you don't get to complain.
Right. And I think we were kind of talking about this at the beginning about how, and it makes me think of like the innocent bystander effect. Like if you're going to be part of a community and you want to have any like influence in that community, you have to be active.
Right.
I think about that a lot with when people first come to Indianapolis. I love Indy. I had planned to come for school and then dip, but like I love it. I love downtown, and when I hear people talk about it, and I'm like, well, what have you done?
Yeah.
And they're like, nothing. I just didn't see anything. And I'm like, well, how are you going to see anything if you're not like looking? And I think it's been really cool how much the Maven Space has empowered all of its members to provide feedback and create so many channels of communication to do that.
You know what was awesome to see? The self-awareness and the feedback on those members. So they would say, if anything, I'm not getting my value because I'm not showing up or I'm not participating. And just the self-awareness of like, the only way, I had someone once say like, I don't really understand what this is. And I'd say, well, have you been to a meetup? Have you used one of the perks in the portal? Have you, joined the private Facebook group? Have you done it? No. I'm like, well, it may actually just not be for you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you have, like, it takes 2.
Yeah. Takes 2 to tango. That's
or more, whatever.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
but yeah, like you have to, like, as a community member, understand that you are valuable, right? Not just from a like money-making perspective, but every time you open an email or click through that email, and then that helps our open rate. So then we go talk to advertisers, and we're able to get advertisers, and that's what keeps our content free, which a lot of places don't have free content anymore, right? And you know that, and the value of those relationships and those partnerships, but we have to prove that people want it.
Exactly.
And so the only way we know that, but we have to, get data,
right?
Obviously, and be able to present that. So that's why it's so important for people to, engage on social and take those memberships, and even just if it's like replying to an email, like, an anecdotal thing. Like, I hated this story. Why would you put it? That's fine too. I don't really get that, but that all of that matters.
And especially in the space, we talk about like events, and it's like people will think, oh, well, I'm just one person in this big community, and so sometimes there's this, if I don't go, no one will notice.
Yes.
And so,
but if everybody thinks that, then nobody's there. Now, granted, like, do you? If you don't feel up to an event, and it's, don't force yourself to do something you don't want to do, but at the same time, recognizing that we want you here. Like, you're not just as like a person in a body in the building, but that's now an opportunity that somebody else has just missed to meet you. Yeah,
and I feel like every event that I've been to in the Maven Space, and Big Brothers Big Sisters hosted an event here as well, which was so cool to be on the other side of it, but when you come into the space, there is such a sense of community, and I feel that if I don't know somebody, like, somebody will point out and be like, oh, have you met so-and-so yet? Which I think is so cool, because it really does, people will notice if you're not there, and not in a bad way, but like, your presence is wanted, and the energy that you bring to the space is so valued. And I think that when people, I mean, I don't know, because for me, I think I felt like that more when I was like younger, less confident in my career too, of like, oh, no one's gonna care if I'm not there. And I feel like since finding the Mavens, it's been like my self-confidence has gone up, because I feel so valued every time I come to
people
an event.
ask, like, are you going to be at an event? Because I'm not used to seeing you there. Truly, like, that has absolutely happened.
I mean, you guys just can't get rid of me at this point. I know
And
I'm
we
in like a
never
bunch of
want
the stock
to.
photography
Nope,
too, and
we never
everyone's
want to.
I put it in one of my bios. I'm like, if you're looking for me, just check the Maven Space first.
That's so funny.
But
that type of thing too, like when we do call outs and say, come do a photo shoot with us, like, come do it. We actually want you to. It's not just like a thing, like it's so awesome that you show up, but then you're able to get the value out of it on your end of things too. So, and truly, like, I'm always very transparent when it comes to business and as an entrepreneur, and like, this space won't stay open if people don't join it or have events here, or I didn't go pursue like $1 million in funding. Like, this was totally bootstrapped, self-funded along with another partner, and it had like, either people are going to show up and it's going to work, or it means that our city wasn't maybe ready for this, or maybe I just wasn't the person to do it. I'm never going to say it's everybody else, but like, one of the reasons we wanted to do Maven Space was because I saw all of the tier 1 cities, and we also, like, we hear that a lot, like, right, like that New York and the LA and the Chicago, and I know, and you know, like, Indy is such a cool spot. Why shouldn't we have a space like this, like a lot of these other cities do?
Exactly.
We should, and so here it is. But if we want it to stay, like, then you kind of like, have to
show up, and be part of it. And I think it's so cool, and I think that the way that you had this idea, but then also took in the feedback from other people to make it happen. I feel like I see a lot of businesses who will grow their business or evolve in different ways more, I don't know, honestly more for the bottom line to, I don't know, get that profit that they could be getting somewhere else. But the way that you've done it so intentionally and in a more intrinsic way, I think has been so cool, and it's just people feel it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because it's, there's a lot sacrificed too on this end, and that's the same thing. I don't want to ever have our content on any Maven, to have a paywall. Like, I always want that to be free. But somebody has to pay for something, right? To produce one story on Indie Maven is a team of 7 people. Like, essentially, when you talk about getting it out on social and getting it into an email and doing the interview, and that is so cool. But like, we also want to be able to compensate those people fairly who are working really hard, right? Because that's another issue for women. And so it's so important to show up and engage and participate. And it doesn't mean you have to do it with your dollars, right? Like, it costs nothing to leave a Google review. We hear that all the time for small businesses. Like, it costs nothing to leave a Google review, or just come in and do a free tour and stay and work for the day. Because when people come in here and they see people in here, it makes them want to stay here. I just hope that, we don't have, not because of the way that we funded this, especially, Indie Maven's great, but like, I don't have 2 years of runway to just like build this. Like, it has to happen now, and that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that risk, and I think that our city is really ready for that. And I know everyone who comes through here has been delighted with it and wants to come back. So hopefully we can make it as accessible as possible. But then there's also the element of getting the rest of the community involved. It's not just on our audience and our members. Bringing in the businesses who are, we look out our window all day, every day, and see all of these names of big businesses who wanted to support minority and women-owned businesses, and it's like, we're here.
come out.
You know?
No, yeah, and like I said, we had the Big Brothers Big Sisters event that was partnered with Indie Chamber, and I know Indie Chamber I've talked to their marketing team and events planning, and they were so excited to be in the space for that, and then for the ribbon cutting, which was really cool. I know Indigo also had an event in here. Will you remind me, was it a film?
They had a documentary that they were showing
that is very
that they
cool.
got from the Redford Foundation, the grant, and so they were able to go show the documentary on the big screens in that room, as well as on the TVs in the cafe, and then have the reception out in the cafe. So it was really fun. We can fit up to 300 people in the space for an event.
That's amazing. I didn't realize it was that many. That is very cool, and I think something else that I didn't quite think of, because when the space first opened, I was trying to think of like corporate events and meetings, lunches, things like that. But I talked to Karen, and she mentioned even like more intimate things like baby showers and birthdays and different things like that, which is really cool because it's such a beautiful space, and with Fork and Function also right here. You make it very easy to host events in here and bring people together, whether it is in a more professional sense or in that more personalized side of things, which is, I feel, very unique in, I don't know, I mean, other event spaces can kind of do that in some sort of way, but it doesn't always feel like they care as much.
Yeah.
And here, it does.
I also think that we are very lucky, again, in the space that we found. Like, we have parking directly, surface lot, right outside our door, like we're right off of Capitol. It's so easy to get into. I think people too are like, okay, if they don't live downtown or frequent downtown often, it can be intimidating. And I always know when somebody's coming from like Fishers or something, because they're always 15 minutes early, like 15 to like 20 minutes early, and saying, I thought it was going to take me a lot longer. I thought it was going to be so hard to park. And it's like, nope, it's really easy to get to. You pull in, the parking is in, and that's a huge barrier for a lot of spaces, especially downtown too.
100%.
So we're really lucky in that way.
That can be a big factor for me. If I have to find parking, I'll be like,
yeah. We have parking lot, we've got plenty of street parking, the red line is right there.
Yes, the red line being right here is so
I've seen
nice.
you pull up on a scooter.
Yeah, you know, whatever way I gotta get here. Okay.
She's like, I will swim, I will take a train, I will take a bus.
I was
just
Dr.
Seuss book.
Yes, honestly, I was just doing the math. I was like, how far is the canal? Like, can I paddle boat here?
Super nice.
Exactly.
That's another fun thing too.
Yeah.
We're like so close to the State House and Military Park and so many, max that is a 10-minute walk. Like, I go lunch there all the time.
I mean, walking meetings here to me and then to go would be awesome.
Yeah.
No.
We love it.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's been so cool. What has been the biggest thing that you've learned in opening the Maven Space?
Probably I was more of like a self lesson. Like, I was talking specifically about the funding earlier. It didn't occur to me that I was someone who could go out and get a loan. So in my mind, it was either like you go pursue funding, and 98% of funding for venture capital funding side of things goes to men. So the odds there, and I was like, this lease is available now, so I don't really have the time to go pitch for 2 years. So that, and then with the odds being what they are, so the odds were both low. And then after that, I was like, well, I guess you just go get a 0% interest credit card and put my savings in and hope it works out. And then one day someone's like, you could probably get a loan. And I was like, oh, that's a thing people do, isn't it? But we women who tend to be more risk averse will go do the 0% interest credit card because loan is a little bit riskier. But at the same time, there are lots of good loans out there. There are lots of good programs and a lot of great banks. We ended up doing ours through First Merchants, and they were great, and we got it, and that has bought us some time, and that prevented me from having panic attacks every night, which was starting to be a thing. So I think just also recognizing, and then I had a friend say, my husband, who does that in his business, goes out and gets a loan all the time. He wants to do something, goes gets a loan. And I'm like, oh, right, because again, this is not a blanket statement, but statistically, a man is going to go do that, and I just didn't think that was an option, and then quickly realized that was just bad business. So I think recognizing a lot of times as women, and I can't speak for minority women, but like the fact that we don't think things are for us, or in other groups that we're other, right? And I say that as a white woman, so but that was still held very true. I did not know that there were options out there for me, and I think we collectively need to do a better job. So I'm always trying to be very transparent about how I've built businesses with other entrepreneurs, because the more information you have, and along the way I would learn things and go, what? I didn't know that was a thing.
Right.
You know, because I learned the hard way, or how grateful I was when someone came over and was like, hey, there's an easier way to do this. Like the bank, like First Merchants did for me. Like I met a woman at an event here. And one of our members, Karen Young, was doing an event and partnered with them. And they were talking about, you know, financial things and entrepreneurship. And I met a woman and that led to that. So I've also firsthand experienced the power of being in this space and having an introduction made. It changed my business.
Yeah.
And not just because it's me, I see that happen all the time with people here.
Yes, I mean, I can't agree more. I feel like every time, whenever people ask like why, I don't know, if I invite somebody, they're like, oh, well, like, why should I go?
Right.
And I'm like, because you're gonna meet somebody who's going to do like make such a connection with you. And I don't know, it's cool how the networks just grow and grow, and like it's this awesome web of.
And this is a way I think to do it faster and efficiently. Because I love going to a lot of like the chamber events. I was at one the other night. I think that especially if you're a woman in business, coming here can kind of accelerate even faster, because women tend to want to support other women.
Yeah.
And you're in an intimate space that also I think people feel safe and comfortable in.
Yes.
And so, not that they don't at those, but
right.
I think just it adds that added layer of comfort.
I agree, and I feel like it almost removes, for me, you said added layer. I was gonna say it removes that layer of me feeling like I need to front.
Oh yeah, I guess you look at it that way too.
Something that like, I don't know, it for me, it's always less tense here. And so like you said, it feels safer and like that added layer of comfort. There was something else that you talked about with the loan, and I think making not only the space accessible, but how to build a business and all the things that are available, that knowledge, making that more accessible. I think that's been something that as I've grown, I'm always looking for feedback. I'm always asking people questions, because there's so many different ways to do things.
Yeah.
But it also reminded me of in our last talk, we were talking about how women will like trying to figure out how to make something happen sometimes. And I think you'd given the example of your husband was like, well, let me call this guy. Called him. And he was like, all right, well, it's done, good.
Yeah.
And how I don't know, like after hearing that, I was like, okay, well, what can I just do and make happen? And I feel like some of that is being like, I can get a loan. Let me go get a loan and make this thing happen.
It's almost, no, it's exactly like we overthink things sometimes too. Because of that, like other less than imposter, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Of like, we get in our heads a little bit, and ever since then I remember that too. I pick up the phone so much more often.
Yeah.
And just ask, instead of like that, hi, I'm gonna send an email, and I'm gonna like kind of dance around it, because I don't want to be too, and you know, and not that I'm aggressive in any, maybe I am, I don't think I am, but like, I'm trying to be efficient here.
Right.
And I can't tell you just that lesson alone has changed my life. Instead of, if I am in the car, I can hands-free say, I would like to call this person, and I can have that conversation, rather than, it's another email that I gotta get back to. My inbox is a scary place anyway. So like, smarter, not harder.
No, I love it, and it's been empowering. And I mean, even taking the word just out of your vocab, I feel like every time I send an email now, I am like, well, I used to be, I just wanted to check in. And
Did you know there's a plugin for this?
No, is there?
Stop. It's for sorry, or is it just or sorry? But there's a plugin that you can do that'll remove when you do, especially it'll do, I think it's sorry, but it also might do just.
That's
if it doesn't, they
wild.
should add it. Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. I feel like I say it, or used to say it a lot, like verbally. And so I wanted to be better about not saying it so much verbally. And I think the word that too, because normally when you use the word that, you're being more passive with your writing or your language. And so I also try to take out the word that.
Oh, that is one I have not thought about, but yeah.
So
okay,
the more you know, SpongeBob, little meme there. But no, this has been awesome. And final question for you. Yeah. And I'm so interested to ask you this again. I've never interviewed a founder twice, so this has been so jazzy. What do you do that inspires you?
What do I do that inspires me? Did you ask me this already and I answered it?
A year ago.
A year ago? Oh my gosh.
I'll play it back for you later.
I'm kidding. Yeah, now I have now I'm thinking like, well, how would I have answered that? But how do I answer that now? What do I do that inspires me? I think just the fact that I have taken the risks, and I only just started looking at them as risks because I can't talk today. I did a podcast with IBJ, and when they put it out, they were like risk-taking founder, and at first I was like, who are they talking about? It didn't identify with that, and then I almost took it like challenge, like it made me bristle a little bit, where I was like, why is this a risk? This isn't a risk. This is, people want this. This is good business. We should support women. And I got a little bristly at first. I had all these emotions when I was reading this.
Yeah.
And then finally came to the conclusion of like, that's not a bad thing. We can take risks. We can do hard things.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe it was a blessing that I was either going too fast or too naive to see the risk that I was taking on. I now know, and that was like a little bit painful.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that I have kept going, despite now realizing the risks that I was taking, because for a minute I was like, it made me panic and go like, oh, I should not be doing this. When I read that, I was like, oh, you're right. This is so risky. What am I doing? I have to get out of this. This is a terrible idea. Like I had this whole thing that I had to go through, and so now I'm like, oh no, that's strength, right? And Currently's like persisting in spite of something, and that's grit, and I'm happy to have that.
I love that. That is so cool.
Even if it was accidental.
Right, but I mean, to have somebody point it out in that way and then kind of go through that journey of emotions to find like, this is good, like this is the next level, like next step, like I think risk is also like a sign of growth, because you can't continue to grow in a space that you are too big for. And so knowing that the community wanted something more and was ready for that growth, it is scary, but that saying, you don't grow in your comfort zone. Yeah. And so I think that does require a risk, and I'm just so proud to know you.
Oh, thank you.
Same
to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. But thank you so much for joining me today for Founder to Founder.
It's great.
2 times. We'll see what happens next year.
Come
back for 3.
I will not have another business. I will not have another child. I hope I have nothing to say. And life is very boring. And, well, maybe not boring.
I was going to say, I can't imagine you having a boring life. But no, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys so much for joining. And thank you so much to IU Kelley School of Business Evening MBA program for supporting us as we continue to interview female founders in the Indianapolis area. See you next time.